I know that we can.
I know darn well we can work it out. Oh, yes, we can. I know we can. Yes, we can. And why can't we if we want to? Yes, we can.
I know we can make it work.
Welcome to Yes We Can. I am Pastor Sherman D.Manning. You're watching from your homes, your automobiles, wherever you're watching or listening. I want you to know you're watching the best new podcast that's out there. And the reason it is the best is not because of me, but because of the fascinating people from all walks of life I have been blessed to have on my show today. And today I have another one of those fascinating persons who's returning for, the third time now. And his name is Brian Ulf. I want to ask all of you to go back, search through YouTube, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Apple Music, all of the other platforms that we're on, and look at my first two interviews with this guy. Those of you listening, Brian ULF. It is pronounced like golf without the G. And he is the CEO and president of Strong House Realty Advisors, and he is a great man, and I've encouraged him, and I'm encouraging all of you. Many of you organizations that contact me and say that you watched the podcast, you enjoyed it. You know hundreds of volunteers. Send out a memo, send out an email. Make this required viewing for your employees, for your volunteers, so that they can see the podcast and see what it is you think about the problems that we're facing in this country so far as it relates to homelessness and all of the other issues that we are discussing. Another note, I want people to go back and look for the interview with Tariq Carroll, Tariq. Last name Khero. He was a fascinating interview. Go back and look at my interview with attorney Frank Gooch. Go back and look at my interview with attorney Matthew Close. Look for me on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Music, and iHeartRadio. I have Brian Ulf today, and I want to shift gears here and talk more about solutions. I believe that the program Brian has told me about is a wonderful program, and we're working with a woman by the name of Brandy now, and I'm hoping that Brian will be able to help me to help her, and if we are able to get her housing, we will do an update on the podcast regarding her. So Brian, you and I are sitting down in the room right now, and we have Karen Bass and we have Rick Caruso in the room, and they're saying to you and me, you're correct. There is no magic bullet. There's no silver bullets. There's no panacea. But what are some of the things we can do tomorrow to start shutting down Hope Row as we know it?
Yeah. Well, again, thank you for having me. And I just want to clarify that one thing that was going on before we took a break.
Yes.
You say you don't like the AA having to identify. And the reality is you only have to identify as an alcoholic when you're in an AA meeting. So the majority of people, because it's anonymous, you don't have to identify as anything.
Yes.
And it protects your anonymity. But
yes.
Karen Bass, I don't know Karen, but I do know Rick.
Mm-hmm.
And I do know that what Rick would do is to make a big change to the existing system. Mm-hmm. And I'm not sure the changes that Karen's proposing, but I know a lot of it has to do with, safer streets, dealing with mental health and illnesses, dealing with housing. I'm a big believer in housing, but I don't think housing is the answer. Self-help support and communication and community informing the social support is the first answer to getting somebody better, where then they can move into housing and become successful people. Mm-hmm. I have no idea what's going to happen in the elections. There's a lot of election things that are going to keep the things status quo, and there's a lot on the line that says it's time to change. Mm-hmm. If they were to ask me, I would say, guys, we can't do a program that identifies everybody in the same basket and sweeps it all under one rug. Okay. It's just not that way. Mm-hmm. You and I talked about housing Brandy. Brandy's a person that's 40 and has severe problems and trauma. Mm-hmm. But all of a sudden, when we do outreach with somebody, the people are suspect when you first come up, because the average outreach worker, not having lived experience, is basically offering a bottle of water and a candy bar and saying, hey, if you sign up for the coordinated entry system, we're going to put you on a list, we're going to give you a voucher, and that's what's going to happen. The problem is the trust gets broken because those things that are promised from the outreach don't necessarily happen. Mm-hmm. And so what we do is, because of lived experience, we being Share. I am Stronghouse Realty Advisors, but my passion and the love that I'm in is as the president and board's chair of Share, Self-Help and Recovery Exchange. And it's just so critical that if someone's willing to take help and someone's really ready to go, that we can actually execute and put somebody into a home within the first 24 to 48 hours of having an opening discussion. So there's a trust level when you can actually do what you say you're going to do. And so, like, maybe Brandy, I'm not sure, you were out doing outreach with her. You have to build trust with the people, as you know. And she told you one story, and then you called me, and I put a Share outreach person directly on it, a housing coordinator. And all of a sudden, we find out that Brandy has a boyfriend. Or Brandy has a boyfriend that works at this major company. I think he said he worked at Amazon. And so now we have a completely different situation, because our Share homes are, it's all women, or it's all men, or it's all LGBTQ, or a combination of vets, because we believe that the synergy between the groups that are together heal better together, because a lot of them experience the same trauma issues: women, domestic violence, prostitution, alcoholism, mental health. When they're dealt with in the house by a peer that's had similar backgrounds, it works. So I just hope that the person that comes in as our next mayor is ready to break up the system a little bit and come with fresh ideas to say it all doesn't have to be one way or no way. And that's what has to happen. I think we are in a perfect storm with, how our district attorney changed all felonies into misdemeanors, and the basic person on the street. I mean, you know this from your experience in prison. The gangs are running the streets right now, not the police. And the majority of people that are out there know that there's no consequences for their behavior. That if you rob somebody of under $950, it's a misdemeanor traffic ticket. If you break into somebody's home and you don't hurt them, it's a misdemeanor traffic ticket for trespassing. And if you don't think the streets know what the rules are, you're mistaken. They know everything that's going on. Everybody on the streets knows. They just said that the largest stolen bikes is Venice, where I live. There's more stolen bikes in Venice than anywhere in the country. And now the police department is qualifying the electric bikes as actually stolen motor vehicles. The crime is out of control. And I'm not saying incarcerate these people and put them into jail, but I'm saying there has to be a penalty of some sort if you're going to continue to break the law, in the sense of, hey, you're going to do community service for 30 days. And I'm going to even pay you to do the community service. But you're not going to commit these crimes and be predators on the people that are trying to get better and just think you can continue to do it. And, it's a sensitive topic. I'm on the LAPD advisory board, and I see what's happening. I think Rick Caruso is trying to bring 1,500 new police officers back on board, since he was a former police commissioner and he saw how it worked when they did it before. And I don't believe Karen Bass wants to increase the police department, which, it's what she wants to do, and that's okay. I just see everything that's happening on the streets, and pretty much every single part of the street is a mess.
Well, let me interject. I will let Karen Bass defend Karen Bass, but I will say that she does want to increase the police department. And I guess the only thing I would vehemently disagree with is I don't think George Gascon is the problem. You're right. The criminals are running the streets, but they were running the streets when Gil Garcetti was DA. They were running the streets when Jackie Lacey was DA, and they continue to run the streets. And here's the sad part of it: some of those criminals are police officers themselves. And again, we get into sensitive topics. But I will say to you, and I'm a middle of the road kind of guy. I don't want to paint everybody with a broad stroke, just like you said with the homeless. They're different. I know police officers who risk their lives every day and do a great job at it. I know police officers who save lives. I know police officers who are ethical, by the book, and they do what they're supposed to do, and I think we should applaud them, maybe even give them a pay raise. I believe that with my heart. And I also know,
I'm not arguing with you on that. I think
and I also know some corrupted guys. Rick Caruso may do a great job. I think Karen may do a great job. My question to Mr. Caruso at the last meeting was how many homeless people had he housed with the 4 or 5 billion that he has now and that he has had for quite a while. So rather than getting into the political aspect of it, I'm just wondering whoever becomes whoever becomes mayor, I'm wondering with the shared model that you have, what do you think we can start doing tomorrow that would help us clean up Skid Row? Because it's a mess, as you know. You're there all the time, and and I agree with you wholeheartedly, Brian, when you say that simply building up a new apartment complex in the middle of the storm is not the answer. Because when I walk out on the streets and everybody and I'm walking over discarded needles, and I'm walking past someone doing crack, I'm walking past someone selling crack, and I agree with you wholeheartedly. It took me a long time to know that, because I will see these guys, Brian, in Skid Row who had on brand new warm-up suits, jogging suits, whatever you want to call track suits, we used to call them back in the day, $200 sneakers and lots of gold. And I'd say, wait a minute, is he homeless? And I found out that there is a segment of that homeless population that are actually not homeless. These are the drug dealers who set up camp. And those people that you rightly point out who get checks every month, and as you said, some of them qualify and don't even get it because they don't know about it or they're too mentally ill to apply for it. But these people who get checks every month, Brian, they are drug dealers who arrive the day they get the money and sell them crack. And sell them crystal.
Yes. The predators are right in the middle. And if you're expecting somebody to be in recovery and the only social support they get is coming from a locked room down to the street, and they go into Gladys Park or they go into San Julian Park, and even inside the buildings, I mean, there are drug dealer gang members that have rooms in the permanent supportive housing buildings. They are also in all the shelters throughout LA. You get people that don't want to go into shelter. You know why they don't want to go into shelter? Because it's not safe.
Yeah, Brian, 3 years ago, and again, bragging on the LAPD, 3 years ago, I housed a woman who was sleeping in a tent who indicated to me that her boyfriend was raping her routinely. I have a duty to report as a pastor, did so. Her boyfriend was a gang member. He put a hit out on me, and I could not believe that the LAPD decided to give me police protection at my church for the next 3 or 4 months without my even asking. I remember I was going home one night and my son was in the car with me, and I said, why am I being followed? So he says, I don't know. So we stopped the car, got out and asked the officer, why are you following me? He says, I was told to follow you because there's been a threat on your life. I'm trying to think of the Captain Alex Bias with the Newton Division. Wonderful, great man. I remember I had a homeless party, and the bus company that brought my people from Skid Row to the homeless party, Tumbleweed was the name of them. Give them a shout out for abandoning my people. They decided that they didn't want to take the people back. Captain Alex Bias got a police bus to take all of the homeless people back to Skid Row for the Yes We Can Worship Center homeless party. So I see them do heroic things all the time. I'm just wondering what kind of model we could set up. I mean, there's no magic bullet, as you've already pointed out, but that we could set up that we will be able to see a sizable difference in the amount of people who are on Skid Row every day. Should we get the government to fund your program? What is the answer here?
Well, our program, again, is roughly going to work for about 30% of the population, because not everybody is going to go in to a shared housing model. It's very difficult for us to convince somebody that they should come in, pay rent, get into a shared housing model when the current system is walking up to them and saying, hey, if you leave the encampment, I'm going to put you in a hotel room. You're going to have your own room. You're going to have 3 hot meals a day. And everything's peachy, and you don't have to pay anything for it. And you don't have to use the services, and there's no curfew. All right. So I'm offering, hey, you're going to come and pay to play and pay to grow, pay as you grow, to the other system where it's a handout. And I believe in a hand up, not the handout. And again,
I agree.
When you're dealing, and I know what Skid Row. This is where I got in, and the police. There's a lot of times in my life that it didn't work out. I got arrested several times, so I've had that experience with the bad egg, so to speak. But for the majority, I think there's some greatness there.
Yes. Yes.
But you asked the question. We have to break up Skid Row.
Mm-hmm.
You can't continue to build high-rise, 20-story single-room occupancy buildings if you don't clean the street up.
Right.
You look at Homeboy, that dealt with the prison release of gangs and in the Latino world coming out of jail, and the services that Father Boyle does. Mm-hmm. If you go over and you look at that building, where he has a meeting every day, almost like an AA meeting, that he talks about recovery, he talks about that. They get paid, they have jobs. And if you walk, there's nothing on the street around that place. It's sparkling clean. There's pride. There's everything. And
you're a scholar.
You're
a scholar. You're a scholar. You just gave me my next guess. I had forgotten.
Oh, Father Boyle.
Father Greg Boyle, Brian, is a saint in my opinion. I met this guy. I met him maybe 4 or 5 years ago, and I remember one of the things that stood out. His office is all glass, because he wants transparency. He wants everyone to be able to see. But that is something to think about. That program is really fabulous, isn't it?
I mean, that's the difference between Skid and Hope. Mm-hmm. Skid is there. If you go over to that building, it's sparkling clean. Father Boyle meets you right there, talks to you. A lot of key executives in many of these organizations are on a high floor. They aren't in there on the street. Mm-hmm. They're not sitting there doing the work that Father Boyle does.
Yes.
And Father Boyle, nothing stops a bullet like a job.
Absolutely.
And so, he had a gang on one side of his church and another on the other side. And he said, look, I'm gonna start a bakery and have people from both gangs working in the same bakery. And guess what? It worked.
Yes.
And now they've got an amazing amount of businesses that they operate on behalf of the people that are in their programs. They get education, they get classwork, they get sobriety, they form community. Look what that program is.
Yes.
It's all about kinship, community.
That's right.
And social support. That is the key to the lock.
There you go. Do me a favor and tell me about, I know that you have many employees and or volunteers who stand out. And I know you're enthusiastic about all of them and you applaud all of them. But can you tell me just about one or two people in your organization that stand out in your mind who have powerful or compelling stories and have made a complete turnaround and have helped you in the Sheriff's program?
Well, I have to tip my hat to Ruth, who founded the program, and to her executive leadership team that do magical work. But where the real secret sauce is down in the peer bridgers. I introduced you to Ruby. You talked to her yesterday. Ruby was formerly homeless. She had all the issues that everybody that has on the street. Mm-hmm. There's a guy named Tom that is now helping Ruby, trying to find a place in a studio for your two friends. Mm-hmm. And these are people that are dedicated every single day to go out there and make a difference. Mm-hmm. And they don't get paid a lot of money. They're on the street. They're on the ground. But every single day, they jump right back in. And the heroes to me are the peer bridgers that actually have taken their lived experience. They've gotten better themselves. Mm-hmm. When you're a volunteer and you're of service, they call it the helper theory, that you get more out of it than you give to the person that's receiving yours. Mm-hmm. And the heroes of our organization are the people that do that work.
How is your program funded?
Well, it's funded mostly from government contracts, but they're small contracts. Mm-hmm. We went to the Homeless and Poverty Committee and said we'll house 2,000 people for $10 million. Mm-hmm. And everybody at the Homeless and Poverty Committee said, "Oh my God, this is the greatest!" And they had us do pilot programs, mm-hmm. and we did 3 or 4 little pilot programs for $50,000. Holly Mitchell gave me $100,000 to house 15 people. Mike Bonham gave me $50,000 to house 10 people, and we housed 36. Mm-hmm. So they know the system works, but we still haven't gotten that bigger check. Mm-hmm. I get $50,000, $100,000, $300,000 from each one, but that just means now they're raising their hand saying they support shared services. Mike Bonham gave me $500,000, mm-hmm. And we're grateful for that. But when it's $10 million to house 2,000,
right,
and it's working, and they all know it works,
right,
that check needs to come.
Yes,
and it needs to come now.
Right.
And that's what you're going to see in society with these new politicians or people that are coming in. Hopefully, I get calls from all the people that are running for office and a lot of the people that are in existing office holders. And they want to know more about our program because, hey, they have to come up with a solution.
Right.
Doing the same old is no longer acceptable.
Right. What do you think about, what is your opinion about LASA? Tell me that.
LASA's in a tough position. They're the agency that's created between two organizations, the city and the county. I think their intentions are great. I think in everything that has to do with politics, there's mixed messages that come. There's different things that some people want. There's, it's like a bill that passes in Congress. I mean, there's pork bellies for this. If you do this, we're going to give you that. It's a tough organization to be in. It's hard to get workers. It's hard to get workers that have to do outreach, and they're putting somebody that, they're working 40, 50 hours, 60 hours a week, and they put a person into a hotel room that is receiving $6,000 a month in services. And so, like the hotel in Venice, it's $100 a night that we pay for the hotel room. That's $3,000 a month for a room, not to mention the services that go with that. And you have an outreach worker that's putting somebody into a building that they couldn't afford to live with. They can't afford to live there. When you're building $1 million unit for 300 square feet, and the person that's in charge of getting people in there getting better can't live there, they have to come from Diamond Bar or wherever to drive all the way here. It's a real tough problem for the workforce in this work. And it's very difficult.
Yeah, I still think that at some point I'd like to have a homelessness summit, and I want to bring all of these brilliant minds, Brian Ulf, you, Attorney Elizabeth Mitchell, Paul Webster, and just all of the people who are doing the work. Bring all of us together and let's talk to Rick Caruso. Let's talk to Karen Bass, because the bottom line is, the bottom line is one of them is going to be mayor. And let's talk to both of them and get some commitments out of them about what they're going to do to ameliorate this problem. And I agree with you wholeheartedly when it comes to career politicians. We have to say to them, more of the same is not going to do it. You can't just throw some money at a problem and think that that's going to do it. For all of those from your great organization, Share, who watch this podcast, I'm going to ask you to do two things. Number one, share the video with some of your friends and fellow volunteers.
It's on our website.
Yes. And number two, I'm going to ask you to look at the other podcasts that we put up also. Before we go, Mr. Ulf, last words, closing thoughts.
This problem is fixable. And I think having a homeless summit and bringing in experts, what I think it should be more like Shark Tank, where you bring in all the other organizations that have a program like Share or West Coast Care that does outreach and sends people and reunifies people back to where they came from. These are great organizations that have really made outstanding, it's the outcomes. Again, the outcomes are who they become. If I didn't have the outcomes, I wouldn't be on the show. I wouldn't be promoting Share. And I think we need to really start to hone in and find out where are the verifiable outcomes in the system that's in place. And that's a really critical start. Obviously there's a lot of money being spent. There's a lot of soft costs. When it costs, again, $800,000 to build one unit, we can't build our way out of this problem. But we can get out of this problem by providing social support and community to these people and pulling them out of that skid row and getting them better outside of that. And it's just amazing how people get better when their situation changes. They're listened to. They get to participate in their own recovery versus being told what to do. As your motto is, yes, we can. We can do this.
And not only can we do this, I think you and I would be a model for the politicians in Washington, D.C., that you and I can sit down and have a conversation where we're respectful, where we're courteous, where we're polite, where we absolutely agree on some issues and we disagree on some issues, but we're still friends and friendly. And
why can't we get HUD to give a voucher for a person in shared housing? They won't.
Come on.
I mean, there they are.
Let's talk about that at the Homeless Summit, because
Yeah.
let's you and I go out, because we're both men of faith as evangelists, and let's promote a homeless summit. We want to get, I agree with you, get all the experts in the room, get HOPICS, Homeless Outreach Program Integrated Care System, all of the organizations you're talking about. We can do a Shark Tank, we can do a think tank, however we want to do it. But let's get together and talk to not only Rick Caruso, Karen Bass, but Holly Mitchell, people who are already in office, and say to them, we're going to start with this. We need a paradigm shift. More of the same will not work.
Agreed. So wholehearted.
Okay, Mr. O, thank you again for coming.
Brian.
Okay, Brian, for the third time, you hold the record. Anybody share it? You're the only person who's ever been on my show 3 times, and I just knew that it would be interesting and fascinating to talk with you. And lots of my viewers have asked me to bring you back. That's why you're back today. I said it once, but I'll say it twice now. Closing thoughts. Anything you want to say before we go? We're going to get out of here in about 90 seconds.
Yeah, the closing thoughts is, we can fix this, and everybody that's out there is fixable. You don't have to look at a person with schizophrenia and say, hey, he's lost. You bring them in, you get self-help support, that person changes. How we treat them is how they're going to fulfill and move on. This is not a one-stop shop. The world is interested in this. Is a humanity situation. And we can do better. We can do much better. We just have to open up the eyes of everybody and say, this one works for this works, and there's room for everybody.
Yes.
But we can't just do it the one way that's happening right now.
So, ladies and gentlemen, I'm Pastor Sherman D.Manning. I concur with everything Brian just said. I think that this problem is fixable. So to Rick Caruso, to Karen Bass, to Holly Mitchell, to President Joe Biden, to all the Republicans in Congress, as well as the Democrats and independents, I say to you that we can solve this problem. We can do it together. Yes, we can.
I know we can make it.
I know that we can.
I know that